This episode will close out the year 2016. I'm Carla Metz, and welcome to Augustana All Access. We haven't gotten a chance to touch on Augustana wrestling yet this season, and that has nothing to do with their performance. The Vikings sit 5-2 for the season and are coming off some pretty impressive performances at the Augustana Duels. We'll catch you up on some of those matches a little later with a word from Coach Jason Reitmeyer. But for now, we've got basketball highlights to go over. Both the men's and women's teams traveled to North Dakota this past weekend to take on Minot State and UMary.
Augustana struggling to get going here in the first quarter against the Beavers. Logan O'Farrell tries to get the layup. She gets the rebound and kicks it out to Abby Ora, whose three-point attempt gets blocked. It's Paige Peterson who gets the ball, finally finding the basket, putting Augie within 3. 33 seconds left in the first quarter here when number 2 Mackenzie Zilverberg connects from the three-point line, and they'd enter the second quarter up 21-14. Vikings defense adding pressure here, and Lindsey Prosser creates the turnover, which would be one of 12 steals for the night. Prosser passes to Logan O'Farrell for the easy bucket. Vikings up 12, and they'd continue to stretch the lead to 15 at the half. The score 41-26. First points for the Vikings in the second half come from Peterson, who boxes out beautifully inside the paint to get the basket. That'd be 2 of a total 15 points for the junior. Logan O'Farrell would lead the team with 17 points, but this 3 would come from the other O'Farrell. Presley would also reach double digits at 10, and both would add 3 steals to their stats, including this one from Logan, who steps right in front of the Beaver for the ball, and that'd lead to an eventual 3 from Sydney Rome. The Vikings would be most productive in the fourth quarter, putting up 24 points, and that put up another conference win for the Vikings with a final score of 85-64. The men's team had a tougher battle waiting for them against the Beavers. We'd hear from John Warren 5 minutes in from just inside the 3. That'd give Augustana their largest lead of the game at 7, the score 13-6. Later in the first half, we'd see a nice drive inside the paint from Adam Beyer, cutting Minot State's lead down to 4, but the Beavers would keep inching further. Beyer helps the Vikings get within 4 again with this steal followed by a dunk, and they take the 4-point deficit into the half at 39-35. Second half, 13 minutes to go, Augie down by double digits when Jordan Spencer finds Mike Busak for 3. We'd hear from Beyer again, who gets the nice offensive rebound, and he'd add 2 to get within 7. But the Beavers would go back to a 10-point lead with this shot from Louis Ricci-Maya. Just under 10 seconds left in the half, and the Vikings would get back-to-back 3s from Spencer and then Beyer, but it would not be enough. They'd come within 2 before Minot State found 2 points from the free throw line, and Augustana would get their first conference loss of the season, 88-84. Mike Busak led the team with 25 points, followed by Jordan Spencer, who had 20. The Beavers had the advantage pretty much the whole game, shooting over 50% from the perimeter and from the field. Saturday night would be much better for both teams against UMary. The women commanded the game against the Marauders even more dominantly than the night before. The Vikings would hit 47% of their shots from the field and would hit 13 three-pointers in the 88-54 victory, including this one from Logan O'Farrell. They were led by Bismarck's own Naomi Rust with 17 points, shooting 8 of 12, and we'd see one here from Rust at the top of the key. And Lindsey Prosser also added 17, going 5 of 7 from behind the arc. This shot from Prosser put them within 3. 2:13 left to go when Logan O'Farrell adds 3 of her own, giving Augustana a 2-point lead, and they'd build on that, stretching it to 10 before the half closed out. And then they'd build on that momentum after the half, sustaining the lead in double digits, eventually winning by 34 points. The men's team also saw a better shooting percentage against UMary, especially from the three-point line, shooting 63% compared to the night before, which only saw 38% from the perimeter. And Jordan Spencer would open up scoring for the Vikings with this 3-point here. Adam Beyer led the Vikings, tying a career-high 24 points, adding 7 defensive boards. Just over 10 minutes to go in the half, and we would see effortless back-to-back threes from Beyer. Augustana had 12 more points in the paint than UMary in this game. Mike Busak drives it in here for 2 to give Augustana an 8-point lead. The Vikings also won the rebounding battle 38-23. John Warren led the Vikings with a total of 8 rebounds. The Vikings took a halftime lead of 49-35 and would eventually get the win 89-75. Both teams have a rematch with Wayne State on December 17th down in Wayne, Nebraska. And as far as the NSIC schedule goes, until the next episode of Augustana All Access, the men's and women's team face Southwest Minnesota State on December 30th, Sioux Falls on December 31st, Minnesota State on January 6th, and Concordia St. Paul on January 7th. And for times of those games, be sure to check out goaugie.com.
Up next, we sit down to talk with Coach Billeter about the takeaways from this past weekend. But before we do, let's check out this week's Vikings vote. How many players have reached double digits at least once for the Vikings women's basketball team? Your choices were 5, 8, 10, or 13. Take a guess, and we'll have the answer at the end of the show.
Augustana All Access on Midco Sports Network is presented by Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine and Classic Import.
Welcome back to Augustana All Access. I'm joined by head coach Tom Billeter to go over the men's game against Minot State and UMary. And coach, you said last week, going to be on the road. You knew it was going to be a tough one going into Minot State. So looking back, maybe what did this game come down to on Friday night?
It's a good question, Carla. I mean this from bottom of my heart. I think they would have beat anybody in our league that night. They played great. I mean, they really played well. They're young. Juniors and sophomores, they're going to be good next year. And I think they're kind of figuring it out because they have some transfers and some new people, but Tyler Rudolph's been there, and they have some people that have been there for a while as well, and he's just an excellent player. They made, every time we had that thing where maybe we could get it tied or get the lead, they would hit a deep three. They had an answer for everything we did. I don't think we played our best game of the year by any means. I think we were probably average. But we played well enough to beat some teams that night, but not Minot. They really, I tip my hat to them. They played a great game, and they were better than us that night, and they made all the big plays. They really played well.
And kind of going off that, they shot over 50% from the three-point line and from the field, and they also did well inside the paint, shooting 36 and holding you to 28. So what were they doing well inside the box?
I thought they did a great job of just attacking us.
Yeah.
They were just creating minor, tiny little one-on-one mismatches, in my opinion, and we adjusted a little slow. I should have. When we adjusted later in the game and actually, to be honest, kind of went small, it helped us. But I should have done that earlier. But, you also hope your bigger guys come down on our end and score, and that wasn't quite happening. So, it was just a good college basketball game. Play them again, there's some things we definitely will do differently, but I'm sure they probably will too. But, going into the contest, it was weird because I know their record, in my opinion, was not real indicative of how well they've been playing.
Right.
They played a really good second half against Moorhead. They played a really good second half against Northern. I mean, they were losing close games, and you see the way they played against us. They're going to win some games. I mean, that's a good basketball team that's getting better all the time. So, sometimes you lose. You just do, and that wasn't our night. We weren't good enough to overcome how well they played, and still hung in there. And they had to hit a free throw at the end. Otherwise we had a chance for a three, possibly to tie it. And again, they made the shots they had to make.
Right, and we've talked a little bit this season too. You've always mentioned that there is a target on the back of the team this year. Does a 4-point loss like this, does that take kind of the monkey off the back, or does that at least help them going into the season? Losses sometimes always help you sometimes.
Yeah,
later.
it's a good call. It's also good. I don't know, because we're just not used to losing. But this year we're going to lose some games. It's just how it is. I mean, we're still not that young. It's just a lot of the guys we're playing don't have a ton of what I would consider varsity minutes or whatever. They just haven't played a ton, and I feel like we're getting better. Saturday night we saw some really good minutes from Andy Kirkman for the first time, who's only practiced a handful of times. He hasn't touched a basketball since last April. And so. I think we're going to keep getting better. Adam Beyer missed the whole fall with a broken foot. We have kids that are, and now he's playing pretty well. He missed an entire August, September, October. He didn't even start practicing with us, full till November. And so I feel like we have a lot of ability to continue to improve. I really like our team. I think we'll get better, but we're not super deep, and we're not I think we're pretty good at everything. I don't know if we're great at anything. And on a given night, when a team plays like Minot did, they got a chance to beat us. And what's funny is, I think Mary's every bit as good, if not better. And maybe if we beat Minot, we don't win the next night against Mary. I don't know how everything works out, but Mary had just beaten Minot a couple weeks before by 11. So, having to drive, get back in that bus and 140 miles down to Bismarck through not a very good. I was talking to you earlier. Our MVP of the trip was George, our bus driver. He did a great job. 75 years old, and holy cow, was he good. I really liked how we responded on Saturday night, and we can build with that.
And obviously bouncing back in that game, 89-75 was the final score. What was the biggest improvement in that game compared to the
made shots? And you know what? A little bit. Mary missed some shots. And I think they probably make those shots on an average night. They missed some shots. Minot didn't miss any shots. I thought we guarded them on some times where they just drilled them, and referring to Minot. And Mary played a solid game. We played real well. And it's funny, if you go back in history, we haven't lost 2 games in a row at home or on the road for like 5 or 6 years. We haven't been swept, which is amazing in a league like this. Our guys knew that. They were kind of fired up on Saturday, and it'll happen this year possibly. Who knows? But it wasn't going to happen Saturday. Our guys were pretty focused, and I thought we came out and played a pretty good game.
All right, well, Coach, by the next time we see you, you've got about 6 more games to go and 5 in conference. So we'll look forward to seeing you in January.
Yeah, you guys have a great holiday, and wish everyone a Merry Christmas, and appreciate everyone's. We've had great support at home, and appreciate all you guys are doing. So thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Coach. Well, up next, we're going to catch up with Coach Kraut on how the women's team fared against Minot State and UMary. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Augustana All Access. I'm joined by head coach Dave Kraut to go over the women's game against Minot State and UMary. And coach, a lot of great things to point out from both of these games. A great win over Minot State, 85-64. But really, looking over the games, the biggest thing I noticed was you were able to capitalize on a lot of turnovers. Not only that, but you were able to create a lot of turnovers too, 12 to be exact. So kind of what made the difference in the defense during this game?
Well, that really was kind of late, probably first quarter. We actually got off to slow starts both games again, which has kind of gotten to be a bad habit for us. But we did end up with several turnovers in a fairly short stretch that ended up in layups on the other end. And when you can get those turnovers but then convert them into layups, it really kind of got us going offensively. And then from that point, we created a lead, and it just seemed to stay there. And, we played a decent game on the road, and so we were happy to get out of town with a win.
Yeah, and kind of like we said, battling against the weather, all the elements, finals for the girls and all of that gets to be a lot. You had 4 players hit double figures in the game against Minot State, and then 5 the very next night. And you got an even larger win against UMary, 85-54. So not only did you have 5 players reach double digits, but you also had 35 points coming off of your bench.
Yeah.
And we kind of talked a little bit about this last week, the versatility of your offense. But is this becoming the strength of your team?
Well, I mean, it's probably one of the things that I hoped would be a strength of ours. On Friday night at Minot, Mackenzie Zilverberg came in and really gave us some good minutes, hit a couple threes, and she hadn't played, our last few games. And then we, again, used a lot of our bench at Mary, and just got, Naomi Rust was probably the one. I mean, she had 17 in her hometown, with lots of, relatives around. That can be a little bit of a stress for some of those kids, but she had a great game. But we just got good minutes off our bench, and as that continues to happen, my confidence in them grows. And
always a good thing.
Yes, because there are times, and it seems like it happens at tournament time. Sometimes you back off on your rotation and play fewer kids. But at this point, like I said, my confidence just seems to grow in them.
Mm-hmm. That's all. Yeah, like I said, that's always a good thing. And we talk a lot about the offense too. But like for looking at a defensive player on your team, who do you think has the strength there? Maybe just from this weekend at least.
Yeah, that's interesting because you've just got different kinds of players, and then we try to put a little pressure on teams, and sometimes it's a combination where you're trapping. But I think Hannah Matoxen off our bench is probably the one that really brings us some energy, and it just seems to result in some good things. Not always big stats for her. Naomi Russ took several charges again this weekend, and those are big momentum plays too for your defense. So, those might be the two that at least after this past weekend come to mind.
Okay, awesome. Well, you've got several more games till we see you back here next on January 9th. Kind of told you that off camera, but this week you've got Wayne State. Do you have a little bit of a scouting report? I know it's a little bit early in the week, but
well, they don't change anything. They had really a very good weekend, similar to us on this road trip to North Dakota. And the fact that they've lost a couple now in league and to us, they will be. That's just kind of their MO, that they tend to really try to use enthusiasm, excitement, just get fired up and find ways, a lot of bulletin board fodder, and so they'll have plenty, both for where they feel their situation in the league is right now, but also from the fact that we got them the first time, and so they want to get us back, and so it'll be a very tough game for us going into the break.
Yeah, trying to ride some momentum in that game,
Yeah.
I'm sure. Well, we will see you back here January 9th.
Okay.
All right, Coach. Well, up next for the first time this season, we're going to go over Augustana wrestling. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Augustana All Access. We mentioned earlier in the show that Augustana Wrestling has improved their record to 5-2 after hosting Truman State, Northwestern, Morningside, and Nebraska Kearney in the Augustana Duels this past weekend. But we wanted to further catch you up on their season by visiting with Coach Jason Reitmeyer.
Augustana Wrestling ended the 2015-16 season with a 9th place finish in the NCAA Super Region 3 tournament, and they would finish with a team record of 18-6. But according to Coach Jason Reitmeyer, his team is already on pace to be much better than last season.
We're a little more mature. Our freshmen look solid. They're pushing the upperclassmen. We've talked about bringing a few guys out of redshirt. We're definitely a different team where we've got some upperclassmen, but we also got some young kids that are really talented, pushing those guys and stuff. Last year I felt like we were just kind of a team that was on the border of being really good or being really bad, depending on an injury or two here, which of course when we had some injuries we were really bad. So this year we can lose guys and still compete the way we did last weekend. But again, if we can get everybody healthy and get them down to weight, we're going to be pretty solid.
And experience is always key in having a great season, and the Vikings returners serve as the team's backbone, including junior Arrow Amo, who is the only Viking to advance to the national tournament last season.
Well, Arrow Amo's been wrestling well. He's 14-3. He's pinning a lot of guys like normal and stuff. He's starting to open up his offense a little bit more on his feet. Michael Lohman's been wrestling fairly well. He had a tough one his last match against Kearney, but overall he's been wrestling really well. Bailey Nicey's Tyler Nation, 57, 49. 49-pounders in general have been wrestling really well. Last weekend they went 4-0. So we got some bright spots, and we got some guys that need some work yet. But Ben Goodwin's been starting to wrestle really well at 97. I like our backup there, Clayton Wallstrom. He's been wrestling really well too. So it's tough. We got guys at the same weights that are wrestling well, and we need to kind of spread them guys out a little bit.
According to the Division II Wrestling Coaches Association poll released on December 12th, the Vikings are currently ranked 23rd, but Coach Reitmeyer says he expects much more from his team, especially after the holidays.
National rankings don't mean a whole lot. It says we're 23rd, but at the same time, I think we're a lot better team than that. But you got to go out and prove it. Again, after Christmas, we're going to look like a different team, though. We got some guys dropping down. We got some guys that are going to be healthy. We'll get Oscar Ramirez back. Hopefully, Brent Havlick back from some injuries. Like I said, we got some guys like Bailey Nicey's dropping down to 49. Morgan Engelbrecht dropping down to 25. So we got guys moving around. We're going to look like a different team and a pretty strong team as long as we can stay healthy.
The Vikings have the Midwest Classic in Indianapolis on December 17th through the 18th. Their last match before the new year will be on New Year's Eve. They'll travel down to Nebraska for the Warrior Viking Open. After the break, we'll welcome you back with the answer to this week's Vikings vote, and we'll tell you which athlete gets named Player of the Week.
Augustana All Access on Midco Sports Network is presented by Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine and Classic Import.
Your Vikings Vote question of the week: how many players have reached double digits at least once for the Vikings women's basketball team? Your choices were 5, 8, 10, or 13. The correct answer this week is C. There have been 10 players to reach double figures at least once this season. Lindsey Prosser, Naomi Russ, and Presley O'Farrell are all tied with 6 double-digit performances, and Logan O'Farrell leads the pack, reaching the mark through all 12 games this season.
Before we get to the player of the week, some other recent news in the Viking athletic community. Head coach of the Augustana volleyball team, Dan Meske, has resigned to take a position at Louisville as the associate head coach. Meske leaves Augustana after just 2 seasons. In his time here, he led the Vikings to a 45-17 record, finishing the 2016 season at 27-6. Also leading them to their first NCAA tournament appearance for the first time since 2008. The Augustana community thanks Coach Meske for his time here, and they'll begin to look for his replacement shortly.
It's time now to name our Viking Player of the Week. It's junior Arrow Amo, who competed in the 184-pound class during the Augustana duels this past weekend. The Rapid City native finished the duel 4-0 with 3 pins and 1 major decision, helping Augustana win 3 of the 4 matches.
First of all, he's strong as an ox. You know, it really helps him out there. He uses his strength well. He's super competitive. He doesn't always talk or show it, but when he has a tight match or loses a match, it bothers him a lot and it kind of eats him up, where he'll come in the room and pick up the pace a little bit and get after it a little more and stuff. So he's got that drive, that little it factor that a lot of kids, it's hard to explain what it is and where you get it, but he has that.
As a sophomore, Amo finished the season at 32-3 at 184 pounds and won 2 matches at 197 pounds. So with a consistent start from him this season, we'll know to keep an eye on him, especially after Christmas break. Well, that's all we have for you on this week's episode of Augustana All Access. The next time we'll see you will be in the new calendar year. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays from all of us at Midco Sports Network. Thanks for watching.